Good afternoon to everyone. Just a quick sound check. If y'all can hear me, please give me a thumbs up. All right. Thank you so much, Andrew. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this introduction to the new RSL Classical Syllabus, starting off with the RSL Classical Piano. This will be RSL's latest offering into the music education space. And we are very fortunate to be joined today by our esteemed speakers. So before I move on to introducing our speakers for today, I'd like to thank everyone for coming and taking time out of their day to join us. We have guests today from different schools attending, and as I know, a few different regions in Southeast Asia as well. So welcome to the session. Just a few reminders for today's session. We do encourage everyone to leave your cameras on for interaction purposes. And also, while our speakers are sharing, do mute your microphones. And if you would like to share a question later on in the session, there will be a question and answer portion towards the end. You may feel free to unmute yourself, or if you are feeling shy today, you can always type in your questions in the chat box below. All right, so we are fortunate to have with us today our two speakers, Dr. Andrew McBurney, RSL Chief Examiner, and Mr. Dan Francis, who is Head of Sales and Partnerships. So a little bit about our speakers for today. Dr. Andrew McBurney studied at the University of Bristol, graduating with a first-class Bachelor of Arts degree in music at the Royal Academy of Music, where he studied with Justin Connolly and gained a PhD in composition from the University of London. Andrew has taught in independent schools and was Director of Music at the Oratory School in Reading. He was Chief Examiner in Music for London College of Music Examinations based at the University of West London from 2002 to 2008, where he also taught on the Bachelor of Music course. After a brief period living in the USA, during which time he taught at Oklahoma City University, he returned to the UK in 2010 to become Director of Examinations at the Royal Academy of Dance, a position that he held for 10 years before becoming the Chief Examiner at RSL Awards in 2020. Andrew is a former composer finalist in the BBC Young Musician of the Year. Andrew studied at Tanglewood in 1995 with Henri Dutilleux and at Dartington in 1998 with Peter Sculthorpe. His music has been performed throughout the UK and internationally by a wide range of orchestras, ensembles, and soloists, broadcast on Radio 3, commercially recorded by Onyx Brass, Avenue A Ensemble, and Paul Ayres, and published by UMP, Breitkopf and Hartel, Steiner and Bell, Tetractis, and LCM Publications. Our second speaker for today, Mr. Dan Francis, has had over 20 years of experience in music education as a teacher, manager, and leader at primary and secondary level, having worked as a classroom teacher, head of faculty, assistant head teacher, head of music service, consultant, and senior leader in education. Dan has seen it all. All right, and so today our two speakers will be introducing us to the new RSL Classical Syllabus, Classical Grades for the Modern Musician. Without further ado, I hand over the floor to our speakers, Dr. Andrew McBurney and Mr. Dan Francis.
Thank you very much indeed. It is wonderful to be here today. I'm Dan Francis, I'm the Head of Sales and Partnerships, and together with Dr. Andrew McBurney, we're going to take you through the RSL Classical Syllabus. We're going to look at the materials as a whole from sort of the debut through to grade 8. We'll look at the benchmarked skills at each level so you can see what sort of level your students should be working towards, and giving you an idea of what level to start your students off when you're engaging with the syllabus for the first time. We're going to look at how the exam repertoire helps to create the complete musician, the holistic musical learning. So this is everything from the performing and the composing and the listening all combined together. And we'll look at the assessment criteria and the exams process, and then towards the end there'll be scope for some questions. It's wonderful to have been invited here today, and we're very, very keen to answer as many questions as you have about this syllabus so that you can really get cracking and enjoy engaging with everything. For those of you that are not fully familiar with Rock School, Rock School is part of RSL Awards, which is a global awarding body operating in sort of over 50 countries. Rock School are the graded music exams, which cover the instruments you can see on the screen in front of you. The philosophy of RSL Awards was to formalise the informal and give opportunities for people to get grades and formally recognised qualifications in areas and in ways that had not really been seen before. So we started with guitar, bass and drums so that people could get qualifications in contemporary or pop performance in the same way that you could with a more traditional sort of violin or piano exam. And then we expanded to include acoustic guitar, vocals, contemporary piano and keys, ukulele, music production, and our popular music theory grades. Our popular music theory grades work really well alongside all of our graded music exams. The vocational qualifications, or VQs, are qualifications for students learning in the classroom with a teacher. So you will have a school will sign up to teach these particular courses for classes of roughly 30 at a time when they start the course at the beginning of a year, and then they progress through the course over a period of 1 or 2 years. So they end up with a fully recognised qualification like an IB or an IGCSE or an A level or something of that nature, which is perfect for progression into university and other higher education. PAA are our Performance Arts Awards, which are group individually assessed group exams for street dance, jazz dance and musical theatre. And if you have colleagues that have lots of people who are into drama and into singing, then musical theatre Performing Arts Awards are perfect for that, and they operate from Premier to grade 8 like our graded music exams in Rock School. And then our latest qualifications are creative qualifications, which are graded exams in podcasting and vlogging, which are fantastic qualifications to engage with for people who are interested in their social media presence and making sure that everything they do online and recorded media is as high quality as possible. And you'll find obviously that loads and loads and loads of students are involved in all sorts of aspects of social media, and this is a really good way for musicians to also develop their skills for when they're expanding their presence in the online field and sort of demonstrating just how good they are at recording themselves performing, etc. The RSL Classical Syllabus is our first move into the world of classical music, and like our other Rock School graded exams, they operate from debut to grade 8, and there are lots of different ways of engaging with classical piano, and are ways where it talks to our contemporary piano syllabus as well. Our main aim with the RSL Classical Syllabus was to make sure it was engaging and informative and as rigorous as possible, so that we could focus on composers that were relevant for students in the 21st century, not necessarily just the traditional range of composers that you would normally see in the classical syllabus. Those are in there because we wanted to make sure that students understood the history of Western classical music from the likes of Bach all the way through Mozart, Beethoven, Chopin, Debussy, etc., but also how that has led to the music that's been written by a lot of modern composers now in the 21st century, plus composers from a diverse range of backgrounds, and there's a fairly even split of male and female composers as well. And as part of that, you'll also find that we've included repertoire from the jazz tradition. So you'll find a piece of music by Oscar Peterson, etc. The idea really is that the Western, what is contemporary classical music right now? It's a mix of lots and lots of different things, with people drawing on their own musical experiences based on their own heritage. And we've put all of that together to create what we believe is a fairly unique and really interesting syllabus. So what I'm hoping to do in a moment is to take you through and give you an example of some of that repertoire. But before I do that, just want to highlight also that Rock School has always had the principle of doing two types of exams. Candidates can do a performance certificate, which is as valid as any other graded exam, where they choose 5 pieces of music to perform for their exam. In the graded music exam, they do 3 pieces, and then you have technical exercises, which are scales, arpeggios, broken chords, and technical studies, which are a combination of musical pieces and technical exercises. And then there's the unseen tests, where there's a choice between sight reading or interpretation and improvisation, and ear tests and general musicianship questions, all of which combine together to help create the complete musician. And I've put a grid on the screen here where you can see that performance pieces are primarily about assessing a student's ability to play as a soloist and also as part of an ensemble. You'll find that there are reference recordings to what the composer to each piece in the book, and being able to listen to those helps the student understand the composer's intentions of this piece. And also, if they're playing along to it, then they're developing their sense of timing, etc. And then the improvisation and sight reading is a really good route into composition. In the sight reading and improvisation test, they'll be given a short excerpt which they need to experiment and develop and fiddle around with to create something musical. And obviously that is a great way of moving from just being able to play the notes on the page to being able to explore their own ideas and develop those ideas further. The technical exercises are obviously a great introduction to theory, and then the ear tests, perfect for developing listening. And the general musicianship questions, they're only worth 5% of the exam, but they're really quite important because they're unprepared, and the examiner will ask the candidate any question about the music, which means that the student needs to have understood the music they're engaging with to be able to explain why a particular 4-bar phrase sounds the way it does, or why a chord has been used in a particular way. And obviously those questions get more sophisticated as you go through each grade. We are very, very keen, even if you're just doing the performance certificate where you're really only focusing on the solo performing aspect, very keen that students are still engaging with the piece of music as a whole and understanding and putting across the composer's intentions in their performance. So they need to understand the historical relevance of the piece, the stylistic elements of the piece, as well as all the technical elements. And that, you will see, comes across in our assessment criteria, which Dr. McBurney is going to talk about later on. One of the other things we're very keen to do, and have always been keen to do, is to give everything you need to prepare for the exam in one book. So in the book, you'll get all 10 tracks that you can choose from, plus links to download the audio recordings, fact files and performance notes, which I'll show you in a moment, all the technical exercises required for the exam, and examples of the sight reading and the interpretation and improvisation, examples of the ear test, and examples of the general musicianship questions. You also have the mark scheme to refer to, and crucially, some specifics around the piano notation that is used in each of the books as well. So I said I would have a look at and talk about the fact files and the preparation and performance notes, and you can see an example of these that are taken from a couple of the grade 1 pieces. On the top left-hand corner, Orin and Echo by Zenobia Powell Perry. This is the background information that students can read and you can talk about, and it gives the opportunity to send the student out to go and listen to more music from the same era, more music by the same composer, more music written in the same style, so they get an understanding of the context of the piece of music that they're playing. And then the preparation and performance notes are to help the student prepare for the actual performance of the piece. The preparation are guidance notes for how to approach the teaching and what sorts of technical things to look out for. And the performance notes are advice on how to present the piece when it comes to the final performance in the exam situation. In addition to what I'm going to talk about today, it's worth going to our website and downloading these sample packs, both for the classical piano and for the contemporary piano and contemporary keys. The reason for doing this is because it gives examples of the piece, it explains the different types of exams that you can do, and it also has the benchmarking criteria, or the criteria that are used to select the pieces at each level. And this is quite important when you're looking at the free choice piece element, which I will talk about later on. But before we do that, let's start listening to some of the pieces. I'm going to jump in at grade 1. This is a piece called La Douce Décembre by Ignatius Sancho. It's quite exciting because this is Sancho was the first composer of African descent to have music published in the Western classical tradition, and we don't think that this piece of music has been seen in print anywhere else than in our exam syllabus. It's written in a very traditional classical style, and it's part of a suite of 24 compositions, and you can see the minuets, cotilons and country dances, so it's giving the reference of the classical music, but referencing sort of the traditional dance suites that you would see in Baroque dance suites. So let's have a listen, and hopefully you can see that the piece isn't particularly long. And the key signature is quite simple. The tempo is relatively steady, relatively straightforward time signature, and you can see the rhythms and the articulation and phrasing and the melodic features and the harmonic features, and the technical demands are quite limited. You can see there are very few chord changes, relatively slow moving left hand and right hand parts. It's generally limited movement. The range is limited, so the hand positions don't need to move a huge amount, and very little in terms of dynamics required, because at this stage, while we're always assessing style and expression, we're not too worried about assessing lots of subtleties in the dynamics. Let's have a listen now to this piece. And to give you an idea of the contrast that you get in the syllabus, that first piece very clearly written in a Western classical tradition. This piece of music is written by a present-day female composer from Canada, and her aim with all her pieces is to create exciting, interesting and educational pieces that are set at a very specific level for students, so they can work their way through the grades nice and steadily. So using the same benchmarking criteria, this piece of music has been selected because it's in a much more sort of jazzy style, and actually the aim is for the left hand, the music to create the idea of a left hand boogie woogie playing style, but it's split between the left hand and the right hand. So the interesting thing and the new challenge, I suppose, for grade 1 for students is performing in the bass clef for both left hand and right hand. And while it's mainly in C major, a nice straightforward key, simple things like additions of B flat and E flat to make it jazzy, to reference the blues scale, which is obviously a significant part of music written in a jazz style. You'll hear in a moment in the recording that the snap fingers are optional. So while technically some students might enjoy it and be able to do it, other students might find that a level of demand that is too challenging. We're not worried about whether you put those in, but it does create a nice extra fun element and is true to what the composer intended. Let's have a listen so you can hear just how different it is to the first piece. So not too much complexity in terms of complicated chords at this stage. When we move up to grade 4, we're staying in a jazz pastiche sort of style here, with a piece by another female composer, Valerie Capers. This is Billy's song, named after Billie Holiday, because this is taken from A Portrait in Jazz Suite, which are pieces designed to evoke or are influenced by other jazz composers such as Duke Ellington and Ella Fitzgerald, and as I said, Billie Holiday. Valerie Capers is a graduate of the Juilliard School of Music, so a highly prestigious, one of the most prestigious music schools in the world. Juilliard School, of course, based in New York. And this piece is written specifically for the intermediate player to introduce jazz techniques. We have jumped from grade 1 up to grade 4, so we've moved up a few grades. This piece of music is designed for the student who is around aged 14 or 15. Now, it doesn't matter what age you are when you enter for different exams, but the benchmarking at that equivalent school level, so their, I guess, their physical size and their mental capacity to deal with particular musical concepts as well as the technical skills, is where the age becomes relevant. And if you have a look at this piece of music, there are some concepts which they need to have developed in order to be able to recognize that this piece of music, what they're playing, works or doesn't work. So if you have a look at, for example, the fourth bar here, or indeed this bar here, which is what, about bar 28 or so, you can see there are some lovely chromatic chords that are being brought in, which are very much in a jazz style, and we've got lots of accidentals that have been thrown in, the combination of sharps and flats, which both makes it more complicated than previous grades, but also the chord that they're playing, they need to be able to recognize whether it's correct or whether it's just an awful dissonance. And that comes from a level of understanding of the style they're playing in and of music in general. So that's what puts it at this sort of level, as well as some of the technical exercises. And you can see we're much more specific here in terms of articulation with the slurs and the specifying where the pedals used. There's some rallentando and R-tempo all brought in. So let's have a listen and you can hear what a great piece of music this is. And then I've got one comment to talk about the general musicianship skills as well in 1 second. As you listen to it, have a read through the benchmarking criteria. You can see how it's stepped up a level from the previous grade. It's lovely, isn't it? And one of the things here is note the repeat. So you've got an 8-bar section here, and then the bridge going through to a recap of the melody at the end, which is essentially written in 32-bar song form, which is a jazz standard form and also quite closely linked to sonata form and rondo, or basically a ternary form. And it's important that students kind of recognize that this piece of music has been written in that style and they understand what a jazz standard is. That's the sort of question that might be asked as part of the general musicianship questions. And it's also really good for students that are listening to other jazz pieces or want to write in their own jazz style and want to perform with other musicians, so they understand these basic structures that are associated with particular styles. So that's really good for their musical education, which is why important that we put the word bridge in to really indicate that that's the structure that's being used. Let's now have a look at grade 4. This is another piece in grade 4. This is Haydn, who is a composer you'd expect to see in the syllabus. And this piece has been chosen because it really shows Haydn's place in the Western classical tradition of formalizing classical structures from the Baroque dance suite. And you can hear in this piece, there are elements where you can see it sounds like what's trying to indicate what Baroque dance suites sounded like, particular styles, and then how that's moved into the Western classical sonata. You can see the similar assessment criteria the benchmarking criteria that have been used here, and you can see on the page that there's a lot more going on than in previous pieces. You can see the jump sort of from forte to piano really quite quickly, and the move from the bass clef to the treble clef. The hand position movement isn't significant, but it looks on the page slightly more complicated than earlier grades, and lots of fingering advice given, and some really interesting things happening to the rhythm at various points as well. You'll notice that pieces, in terms of the length of the pieces, they vary a significant amount. And that, of course, is because some pieces are slower than others. And that depends on whether we really want the student to focus on their lightness of touch, or their deftness of touch, or their expression, or whether it's much more of a technical piece of music. Let's have a listen to this one. So not a particularly long piece of music, but beautiful, and lots of things for the student to get engaged with. Now let's have a look at grade 6. So we're talking about students that have been learning for quite a while. They are roughly at the sort of age 16 level in terms of their understanding of music as a whole, and in terms of their general pathway through education. But as I said, they can engage with these pieces at any age, at any time. These pieces by Alexis French, who is a British composer who studied at the Purcell School, the Royal Academy of Music, and the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, so 3 of the most prestigious musical institutions in the UK. His aim is to combine Western classical music with roots and R&B traditions, so very much at the heart of what we're trying to do with our syllabus in terms of the level of diversity and the different styles of music that are all fusing together in the 21st century. So we can have a listen to this, and you can hear a lot of the minimalist elements as well. The jump ahead, you can see that we're talking about 4 sharps here, some technical things going on where the left hand is relatively independent to the right hand. So we've got one type of texture going on here, and here the left hand and right hand are kind of flowing in and out of each other really quite beautifully. So 2 very distinct piano playing techniques are kind of combining in the one piece in relatively quickly, just on the first page. You can see the tempo ranges can be quite large now, from 50 beats per minute to 200 beats per minute. But lots of things, there's just sort of subtle differences and advances in terms of the technique and the rhythmic features, and the chords as well, the number of notes that students need to be able to play all at one time. And the melodic features, you'll see there's a much wider range the student needs to be able to play, to reflect the fact they've got much more technical agility in terms of moving their hands around the piano. and there's greater independence and codependence of the hands as well. Let's have a listen to this piece. And we could listen to that for several hours. It's a beautiful piece of music. But let's move on now to grade 8, where there is a step up. This is where we're talking and working with students who are at the very top end of their musical journey with us and their ability level. So lots of technical things involved. You can see here I talked about the range of notes that a student needs to be able to play, and you can see that lots of big chords and leaps, as well as combination of dynamics and the time signature and so on, and some really nice little touches in terms of the cross rhythms where you've got the duplets within the 6/8 time signature here. Coleridge Taylor, very interesting composer for students to engage with as well. He was very, very prolific because fundamentally he was a jobbing musician who would write music to sell it, to get the rights, to get the money so he could just make a living, rather than it being about spending lots and lots and lots and lots of time writing a piece of music that was going to be performed to great ceremony later on. This was just producing stuff very, very quickly in order to make some money, which is not that dissimilar to where a lot of musicians obviously work in the 21st century. So let's have a listen to this piece. And you could just hear at the end how there was a sneaky little change of key signature to show the sort of the rapid changes that happen at grade 8 that you won't see in earlier grades. I'm going to finish the musical excerpt part of this presentation with Debussy's Arabesque. Debussy is a composer you would expect to see in the Western classical tradition, and another example of a composer working in the 20th century that was absorbing lots of different styles from his own surroundings, but also really stretching the harmonic and musical language that was associated with the Western classical tradition, which led to lots of other things in the 20th and 21st century. And crucially, he used interesting scales such as the octatonic scale, or the whole half diminished, and the half whole diminished, and the pentatonic scale. And these scales are also included in the technical exercises at the upper grades. So we are encouraging students and almost requiring students to go beyond just looking at major and minor. So let's have a listen to this this excerpt of this piece of music. And again, you can see the flowing motion between the left hand and the right hand. The technical demands are quite sophisticated in order to get the style and expression across, and these become very, very tightly focused on at grade 8. So let's have a listen to this beautiful piece. And I mentioned the technical exercises a moment ago. So here is an example of what you will see in the book. For the technical exercises, there's a combination of students being able to play hands separately and hands together. As you go through the grades, you'll find that the range that they need to play, plus the tempo they need to play the scales at, increases, as well as the range of scales. But as a basic rule, at debut level, the scales on arpeggios are only built around C major and A minor, so no sharps or flats. Then at grade 1, it's 1 sharp or flat, so F major and D minor. Then at grade 3, it's 3 sharps and flats, so here you can see E flat major, C minor, and A major and F sharp minor. And then you get to grade 5, and it's 5 sharps and flats. And then at grade 8, it could be all sharps and flats, but we've introduced, as I said, things like the whole tone scale and the whole half diminished and the half whole diminished scale as well. You have a click track, which gives you the metronome, the beats per minute, as a metronome click for students to practice with. So you can help them and support them with playing the scales at the right tempo for the exam level that they're working through. And you also have examples of the unseen tests as well. So you can see that the sight reading example here on the left-hand side, the debut sight reading and debut and grade 1 sight reading examples are quite straightforward. It's one hand, and they're kind of imitating each other quite nicely, and it's a relatively short sort of excerpt that they need to be able to sight read. And by the time you get to grade 8, there's lots more complexity in there. So you're looking at chords, more complicated time signature, and many more things for the student to process in a period of time. And Dr. McBurney can talk about the some of the things that the examiners are looking for in this arena. We also took a decision with the classical piano syllabus to include the option for improvisation, and the improvisation examples we've included are exactly the same as those as in the contemporary piano syllabus, because we wanted to make sure that while a student was looking at the RSL Classical Syllabus, they could also continue to explore their contemporary techniques, not only because there are jazz pieces in the syllabus, and obviously improvisation is a significant part of that, but improvisation can be part of the pop syllabus, part of sort of pop playing as well, and you can incorporate pop pieces from the contemporary syllabus into the classical exam as well, and I'll explain more about that in a minute or two. But for now, I would like to hand over to Dr. McBurney, who is going to talk about the exams and assessment process. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
That's excellent. Thank you. It's lovely to be with you today, albeit from a long way away. And thank you very much for your time in attending the presentation. I'm just going to speak a little bit about the approach we take to assessment with a team of examiners, because obviously we are an examination board at the end of the day, and we take assessment very seriously, and we want to make sure that we deliver reliable and valid assessment, an accurate assessment for all the students who take our exams, as well as giving them an excellent learning experience with the repertoire that we publish and make available as well. We launched actually a new approach to assessment at RSL about a year ago in May 2020, about the same time as we launched our recorded video exams, and also the same time as we launched our new Excel-based digital mark sheet. So that was quite a significant moment of change for RSL. It was also when the pandemic hit in its vengeance, so everything was really happening about a year ago at the organization. And this new system, it delivers an enhanced process, a more efficient process, but it also, we believe, delivers a better, more transparent and clearer way of assessing and examining students, which is more reliable and more understandable. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about how that works. The standards were unchanged from previously. We obviously award results of pass, merit and distinction in line with all graded examination boards in music and dance and drama, a very standard approach. And we still feel that achieving a pass or a merit or a distinction now is essentially the same as it was before. So we're not fundamentally looking for students to do anything different, but we are changing the way that we break down that assessment and the way that examiners formulate their judgments in order to hopefully make the judgments more accurate and reliable, and also to make the breakdown and the feedback and the information we can give more relevant and more beneficial for all the students and teachers. So the way we define it is that we have 3 learning outcomes, and learning outcomes are a statement of what the student needs to be able to do or show or understand in the exam. This is what they've achieved if they pass an examination. And we break down these learning outcomes in 3 ways. Students should be able to perform music in appropriate musical styles, to demonstrate technical ability on their instrument or voice, and to demonstrate musical understanding. And Dan talks a little bit about how they demonstrate that understanding through their performance, as well as through, for example, the general musicianship questions. And those 3 learning outcomes align to the different components of the exam quite directly. So performing music in appropriate styles is through performance of the set pieces. The demonstration of technical ability is through the technical exercises, and the demonstration of musical understanding is through set tests, unseen tests, and the general musicianship questions. And then the way that we ask candidates to demonstrate that they've met those learning outcomes is through the assessment criteria. And these are the specific things the examiners will make their assessment judgments about in the exam. And we've defined now just 4 criteria. We had many more before, and they were quite complex. They were different for different instruments and different levels, but now we have just 4 across all of our instruments and all of our grades that we offer. And they are, first of all, command of instrument. So that's really about the sound you're producing on the instrument. Do you have the technique, the physical technique and the control of technique to produce a really nice quality of tone and quality of sound in the instrument that you're playing? The second criteria is sync or pulse. So that's at its simplest level, that's really playing in time. If you're playing along to a backing track, which many students do if they're playing our contemporary rock and pop syllabuses, then you're playing along to a backing track and you need to stay in time with the track, stay exactly in time with the beat. When you're playing solo piano, of course, it's a little bit more nuanced than that. It's not always a question of sticking rigorously to the time. Sometimes there's rubato or changes of tempo. Sometimes you'll control that timing through expression. For example, you might just hold back a little bit at the end of a phrase to make that just a little bit more telling and expressive. So for classical purposes, we interpret the sense of pulse as a sense of timing, a sense of control of timing and pacing of the music, which we think is a very important aspect of musicianship. And then the third one is accuracy and understanding. So that's really about playing the right notes in the right order. That's the real bread and butter of performance. So the right pitches, the right rhythms, the right dynamics. And of course, for classical performance, it is quite important to observe all the markings on the page, things like articulation and dynamics. If they're in the music and they've been put there by the composer, it's really important to demonstrate that through your playing. So that's really control of the score and understanding of the score. But at the same time, we balance that out with the fourth one, style and expression. This is where candidates can give a little bit more of their individual personality and interpretation. Of course, no two performances of any piece of music will ever sound exactly the same, and that's as it should be. And so we do want students to develop those personal qualities and expressive qualities of performance as well. So taken together, those four assessment criteria is the way we break things down. They're equally spaced, so the examiner will give an equal amount of marks, 25% of the marks for each one of those. And that does give us a certain distinctiveness as a board, because, for example, the emphasis there on timing and pulse, for example, that's something that maybe other examination boards, they might not put that quite so dominantly in the mix as we do. And I think that maybe comes from our background as a rock and pop based board, which is where we've come from in our heritage. Obviously, playing in a studio, laying down a track for a pop record, it's really crucial that you play absolutely in time. Drummers know all about that, and we've taken that aspect of musicianship forward for our classical syllabus, and we're giving that quite a significant amount of weighting in the way that examiners assess. And then, of course, the final element of that whole process is the judgment the examiner makes. So that's the grading criteria. For each of the assessment criteria, they'll make a judgment about how well that thing was done. So we talk about that being some, most, or all of the time. So if they were able to show good timing some of the time, that would be equivalent to a pass. If it was most of the time, that would be a merit, or all of the time a distinction. Or another way of thinking about that is the concept of excellent for distinction, good for merit, and okay for pass. And this will be very familiar to any of you who are engaged with graded exams with any board. These are very standard approaches, and RSL would take the same approach as any other board. So from that point of view, in terms of the overall achievement, we do have parity, as all graded exam boards have to have through regulation with bodies like Ofqual. We make sure that the overall assessment, the overall achievement is comparable. So we think that this approach has a number of really good benefits and clear strengths for everybody involved in the exams. They're easy to understand, they're consistent, they're straightforward, they're across all instruments and grades, like I said. So that means that examiners, when they examine any instrument or any grade, they're always looking for the same things. They're always making the same judgments, and that promotes the consistency, which we always want from our exams. One of the most important things about exams is that when you enter a student for an exam and they take their exam with one of our examiners, they'll get the same mark with any other examiner. They'll get the same mark the year before or the year after. That we have that consistency of application between examiners and over time. And the more consistent we make things, the more we're likely to get that outcome. But the new digital mark sheet approach, which I mentioned before, which is all tied in with this, it also provides us with a lot of benefits in terms of the process. So we've now gone paperless, essentially. Examiners use their laptops in exams. They enter their marks and their comments on an Excel-based mark sheet on their laptop. They then upload that to our system, and that is transformed into a PDF report, which is sent electronically to candidates. So everything is done in a paperless way, which obviously cuts down costs. It's environmentally beneficial, and it means everything can be done a lot more quickly. It's very common that students will get their results just a matter of a few days after they've sat the exam with the examiner, which is a really important strength. Of course, we do also subject those results to properly quality assurance proper quality assurance processes, as all boards do. So we do have a checking process. We do have a statistical basis that we check the results, and we make sure all our examiners are examining within accepted tolerances in terms of their reliability and accuracy. So all of that does happen, but we're still able to get things done very quickly, which is a very good point for everybody concerned. So the next thing I just need to mention is the written comments that the examiners give. Again, a very important part of the exam process, and I think much valued by everybody. We do certainly give individual comments for each student from the examiner. And indeed, if they take one of our recorded video exams, they even get a video feedback from the examiner, where the examiner will record 30 seconds of verbal feedback to camera, which is a really nice personal touch. The comments, though, unlike many other boards, they are general across the whole exam. So we don't break down comments by component necessarily. We ask examiners to divide their comments into 3 general areas. They focus on the strengths, the particular strengths and positive points the candidates showed, the best things about their performance, some areas for development, some areas of improvement, and also a general summary. And of course, the examiner can pick out particular elements they want to highlight, so something about a particular piece they played, or something, some particular aspect of their performance, whether it be technique or musicianship or style. All of those things can be highlighted by the examiner, but what it does mean is the comments can be more focused, they can be more tailored to the candidate, they can be more relevant, and we avoid the kind of duplication you sometimes get when examiners feel they have to say something about everything, but really, if with some students, it can be a very similar standard throughout the exam. So once you've explained how they played one piece, you've explained how they played the other 2 sometimes. And so that means that examiners can actually tailor their comments as they need to give the most constructive and useful feedback for every particular candidate. So we found that has worked very well, and we've had very good feedback about that system, which has been running for about a year now. And examiners mark each of the assessment criteria. They give it a mark of 20 out of 20. So that means that for a pass, it would be either a 12, 13, or a 14. For a merit, it would be a 15, 16, or 17, and for a distinction, 18, 19, or 20. And that again gives a very sort of clear and consistent approach in terms of the way that the assessment criteria are applied. And we do actually provide the attainment bands for those assessment criteria as part of the breakdown of the marks. So you not only get the mark for your first piece, you know that you played your first piece very well, you got a high merit, so you got maybe 17 out of 20 overall, but you also get an indication of how good was your command, how good was your pulse, how good was your style. So how did that mark break down into those different points? And that's something that I don't think many other boards do, to give that level of granularity of that detail of the internal marking that goes to make up the total mark. So that combined with the comments gives a very useful and tailored feedback for every candidate. The last thing I just want to mention is that we do have at RSL, we have over 100 examiners who increasingly they're global, they live all over the world, and they all examine the various different instruments and grades that we offer. However, we do have a specially trained subpanel of classical examiners for the classical piano exam. So when we started to develop and deliver this syllabus, we did an audit of our examiners. We found out which of them had experience in studying and teaching and playing classical music, of which many of them do, and we then gave them specialist training, which I led myself, to apply their skills to examining classical exams, and that was extremely constructive and successful process. So we now have about 45 examiners who are specially trained to examine these exams, and they're all enjoying the work very much. So that probably covers everything that I need to say for now. I'll hand back to Dan, but obviously if anyone has any questions towards the end, we can discuss some other things then. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. That's really, really brilliant. Great way of summarising kind of the process and where we sit within all of that. Now, quite excitingly, we over the pandemic have done some fantastic things in terms of changing the way you can take an exam with RSL. So I just want to go over those. We have the traditional way of taking a face-to-face exam, where a student goes to a venue to take their exam, and then the examiner's there, and you go through the process, and you can do that with the performance certificate or the full graded exam. We also have the option of going to the exam centre, but instead of the examiner being physically in the room, they'll be connected by a live video link up, so they could be anywhere in the world. And we've done a number of these exams, and they've worked really quite nicely. And again, with that option, you can do the performance certificate or the full graded exam. And when it comes to organising exams in that way, then the recommendation is that you talk directly to the fantastic reps that you have that have also put this webinar together, because they're absolutely fantastic, and will be able to give you all the help in the world, and they'll be able to answer any questions you have and talk you through the process really, really quite nicely. They will also be able to talk you through the process for the video submission exam. The video submission is when you complete a complete unedited recorded video of your student doing their exam. Now, they can do their performance certificate, so they can do a complete unedited recording of 5 pieces, or they can do a variation of the graded exam, which is the graded certificate. And this is where they don't do the unseen tests. There's no examiner in the room to give them a selection of the scales and the sight reading that they would want. So what the candidate does is they do an unedited recording of the pieces, and then all the scales and all the arpeggios and the technical studies that are contained within the book, to demonstrate that they can play all of those. And that way we assess their ability to play all of those plus the pieces together, rather than the full graded exam where they'll be asked to play the pieces, and then the examiner will ask them to play a selection. So for the video submission, you can do either the performance certificate or the graded certificate. And once the student has recorded their video, they then enter on an online portfolio, an online portal, and they have up to 3 months from the point of recording it to get it uploaded to our system. I've mentioned the free choice pieces, and there's a question about this in the chat, which we'll deal with specifically in a minute or two. But our general principle for free choice pieces is that for the full graded exam, 2 of the pieces can be from anywhere else, any other awarding body, or indeed from the contemporary piano syllabus. Or from anywhere at all. If the student has particularly enjoyed engaging with the piece of music, they can use this for their exam. There are stipulations. First of all, when you're selecting the free choice piece, use the benchmarking criteria that is in the sample pack, and you'll be able to make sure it's at the appropriate level. You also need to make sure that there's a copy of the notation and the audio for the examiner, so that they've got something to assess against. And I can talk through the process of gaining approval for those later on. For the performance certificate, they can have 3 of the pieces can be free choice pieces. Now, for RSL Classical specifically, we've actually opened this up even further. So all 3 pieces can be from any other recognised UK awarding body, or indeed from any other source, and all 5 pieces for the performance certificate can be from any other awarding body, and as long as they're in an appropriate sort of style. And we can talk about some of the details of that later on. Now, the free choice pieces are perfectly valid for the full graded exam and for the performance certificate, and indeed for the recorded graded certificate as well. We sometimes get asked a question as to why would you engage with an RSL exam? Well, it is an internationally recognised qualification. It has exactly the same academic rigour and the same official recognition as all other awarding bodies, and it does, like every other awarding body, carry UCAS points from grades 6, 7 and 8. So those really valuable university entrance points that particularly in the UK students are looking for is really valuable. And of course, as a teacher, there's a lot of work put in as a teacher, and there's a lot of time and money and energy put in as a teacher and as a student and as a parent. So the exam is an excellent and valuable reward for that investment in money, energy and time. We're also conscious of helping students prepare for exams. Exams are very different to performing in a concert or playing for fun. So we want to make sure that the students are fully aware of the assessment criteria and the process from as early as possible. So to really help them get engaged with rock school methodology and the RSL way of doing things within piano, we've created 2 piano method books, book 1 and book 2, which obviously go up in standard. And they're designed to prepare students for the debut level of playing piano. We believe that once they're halfway through book 2 of the piano method, they're more or less at the standard. That means they'll be able to cope with the demands of the debut piano syllabus. You can see the books are designed to introduce various different things. They're arranged into topics, and crucially, there's a certificate for completing the books that feels a bit like an exam, and there are stickers for completing the tasks. And then inside each of the book, there are teacher and student parts and downloadable audio, which means that students can play both alongside the teacher, but they can also play to the backing tracks when they're practicing by themselves. And the books are available in hard copy format only. I just want to make one final comment here. As you look at the contact details for the fantastic reps that I've just been talking about, they'll also be able to give you advice as to how to get hold of the books, which are available both in hard copy and in digital copy. And one of the things that sets us apart from other awarding bodies is when you get the digital books, you also get this thing called Replay, which is an interactive sheet music player. So you get scrolling across the screen as you play the tracks, the notation scrolls across as well. And you can also loop parts, you can change the balance of the different parts, you can transpose it, you can change the tempo, and you can also change the score view. So from a teaching point of view, you could have the left hand playing in the background, but you could just have on the screen the right hand part, so the student can just practice the right hand piano part while they're listening to the left hand in the background, which makes it a very engaging process. But also it means that you're taking out a lot of the visual noise, the visual stuff that could get in the way, so they're just focusing on the right hand whilst they're listening to everything else going on in the background. So we hope you find that really, really helpful. I'm now going to stop and hand over to our fantastic team and stop sharing so we can deal with any particular questions. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you so much to Dan and Andrew. So now we open the question and answer portion of the session for today. I see we already have a few questions in the chat. Firstly, let me just scroll up a little bit here. Okay. All right, the first question we have, how do we distinguish whether a free choice piano piece composed in a contemporary era can be taken as a classical or RSL contemporary piano exam?
It's a very good question. Dan, do you want me to have a go at answering that one first?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I would start from a different place. I would start by saying, do I want to take a classical piano exam or a contemporary piano exam? What do I want to do? And then in terms of free choice pieces, the bottom line is we're not going to get into the position of making judgments about whether a particular piece of music is in a classical style or a contemporary style, because style is a very difficult thing to pin down, isn't it? And there are lots of pieces of music which kind of sit in the middle. And in fact, there are lots of pieces of music in our classical piano syllabus that could happily sit in our contemporary piano syllabus. Music from shows and musical theatre type pieces and jazz influenced pieces. But then there are pieces such as the Haydn that we heard, which is very much on the classical side, and there might be a pop or rock tune, which is very much on the pop side. But if somebody wants to come and play in their classical piano piece and they want to play some music which is more popular or jazz influenced, we absolutely would not have a problem with that. The key thing is that the technical exercises and the tests obviously are going to be from the particular syllabus. For the classical syllabus, the study is required. I would, as a teacher, make a kind of an informed judgment myself as to what kind of experience I want my student to have, and then put a program together which fits into the structure of classical or contemporary. But we're not going to make too many judgments about whether a piece is in the right style, unless it's obviously one side or the other. Dan, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think that's a good summary. I think the critical thing to note is that the scales and arpeggios technical studies are different in classical and in contemporary. So you need to look at the scales and arpeggios really and decide whether, and that will help decide whether it's going to be a classical exam or a contemporary exam. But no, I would absolutely, I'm in I think everything Andrew said is absolutely bang on. Yeah, good. So next question.
Well, the next question is, if I've taken an LCM grade 2 piano, am I in a good position to take an RSL grade 3? And the answer is yes. All of the UK regulated exam boards, which includes LCM, which I used to work for, are regulated by Ofqual, and the grades are comparable. So if you've had a student who's taken grade 2 with ABRSM or with LCM or Trinity, then that would be exactly comparable to RSL grade 2, and you would now be moving on, one would assume, to RSL grade 3. So the answer is yes.
And next question, is there a difference between the grade exam qualification earned via recorded video submission versus a live video exams face-to-face exam? The short answer is there is no difference. They are all equally valid and assessed at exactly the same level. So all the regulation, all the benchmarking, all the assessment criteria, how it's regarded externally is all exactly the same. We are very much required to make sure that a grade 5 exam is a grade 5 exam, and it doesn't matter kind of how you've taken that exam or what instrument you're doing it on. It needs to demonstrate the right level of technical skills and musical understanding. So, which also is why when it comes to the free choice pieces, if you decided to do a rock school piano exam, which obviously we strongly recommend you do, you could for grade 5 just take an associated board grade 5 piece and do that as part of your exam. Likewise, a Trinity grade 3 piece you could do as part of your grade 3 exam. And for those, when it is definitely and published as at a certain grade, you don't need to go through the free choice piece approval process. Connor has actually put in the chat the email address. If you've got free choice pieces and you're not sure whether it's going to be appropriate for the right level, or it's not published in an awarding body, then please, you must get checks with us really that it is going to work at that particular grade, and give yourself enough time to go through that checking process, so that if it comes back and we say actually that piece is a little bit too easy, or even that piece is above the grade, you've still got time to work with the student to prepare a different piece. And another question, can a pure jazz piano piece be taken as RSL classical exam piece? And that's sort of linked to the question before, and the answer to that is yes. I think is the easiest way of answering that question.
Yes, I mean we would assess a jazz piece on the same criteria. So is the musicianship shown? Is the playing accurate in terms of the score? Now, obviously, with a jazz piece, there's going to be a very high improvisational element, and that will be understood. So the accuracy will be squared with understanding. That's the two parts of that particular criterion. It says accuracy and understanding, and the word understanding is there particularly because we know that in certain styles of music, sometimes students are not going to be playing exactly what's on the page. They're going to be improvising or embellishing, and that's completely understandable and in line with that style. So we would talk about accuracy and understanding as a combined thing. So if the performance is showing a good understanding of the jazz idiom and what's being presented is within the expectations of that style with that particular piece, then that would score a good mark for accuracy. Obviously, style would be assessed as appropriate with the jazz idiom. We would assess timing in the same way, and we would assess quality of sound and technique. So we would take every piece on its merits. Like I was saying, we're not going to get into the business too much of trying to put music in particular stylistic pigeonholes in terms of the choices. I mean, the classical exam book, the publication that we have, has a range of pieces which we set for our classical piano exam, and they are the sort of the repertoire we expect people to start with. If people want to come along and play different things, as Dan has said, there's that free choice option, and it's much more about whether the choice of the piece is commensurate with the grade level. That's what's really important. So if you turn up for a grade 4 exam and you're playing a piece which is really a kind of grade 2 level piece, then that will impact on the marks. I mean, the examiner would have to take that into account because the student is not showing the level of achievement that they need at that particular grade 4 level. But that's why we have the checking process, so that if you have any concerns about whether something is appropriate, you can send the music to us and we will approve or possibly say, well, no, we don't think that's quite right. And then you don't have to worry, and you know that the piece has been accepted. If you don't go through that process, and it's not compulsory, obviously there's that risk that the examiner might take the view that it's not an appropriate piece for the exam. But having said that, if a piece of music is on the syllabus for any other regulated exam board, so that would include ABRSM, LCM, Trinity, and any other regulated examination board, Australian Music Education Board as well, and that would include a piece on a current syllabus or indeed a previous syllabus for those boards, as long as it's been on the syllabus at that level, then we will accept that. And as Dan said, till the end of 2021, you can have 100% of your pieces chosen that way. But after the end of 2021, it will revert to the standard approach, which is a maximum of 2 for the graded exam or graded certificate, and a maximum of 3 free choice pieces for the performance certificate. So you would always have to, after the end of this year, you would always have to play at least one piece from the classical book in your classical exam, or 2 for performance certificate, and always one piece from our contemporary piano syllabus for a contemporary exam. So that means that there's always that starting point, and then you have a little bit of room to play different repertoire as well.
Great. So I'm going to whiz through a few of these next questions. So one question: how can we justify for the pieces taken from other syllabus according to the standard for rock school? Well, I think there are 2 ways. As Andrew's just said, if it's already been published in another awarding body at that particular level, then that's okay. And you can use the benchmarking criteria and then use the free choice pieces at rslawards.com to go through the checking process in that direction. Next question: any prerequisites to do grade 6, 7, 8 RSL classical piano exam? No, we don't insist that you need to have things like grade 5 theory. You can move from one exam board to us. You can have done no exams before and come in at grade 6 or grade 7 or grade 8, or you can go through the process from debut to grade 8. All of those are equally valid. There are no prerequisites. You just need to be able to demonstrate you can play at that particular standard in order to make sure that you can pass the exam. What was RSL's thought process of selecting the pieces and wide array of composers, including many who incorporate their own ethnic influences? The thought process was simply in response to lots of feedback that we'd had, and reading lots and lots of comments, both in sort of the national and international press and on social media, that highlighted the fact that there were lots of awarding bodies and lots of exam syllabuses out there, but they didn't really represent the 21st century. They didn't represent who was actually living in the world. So we wanted to make sure that our syllabus did that. Now, we can't cover everything in 10 pieces, but we try to be as representative across debut to grade 8 as we possibly could, to represent as many appropriate styles and as many composers as we possibly could. The other thing to highlight as well, actually, around all of this to do with selection of pieces, is that we are also about to make available a specific Southeast Asian piano book, which has got pieces of music from Southeast Asian composers that are benchmarked at the appropriate level. So that's going to be a really, really fantastic compendium of pieces that you can draw on as well. They'll be available very, very soon. And please do talk to your reps and also Connor in order to get hold of that that compendium. Next question. Graded exam structures seem similar for what the students have done currently in ABRSM. Yes. What can we highlight to the students to differentiate from other exam boards? Well, I think there are two answers. First of all, we are making sure that students are working at the same level, because there is a certain amount of academic rigor, a certain amount of knowledge and technical skill that you need to be able to demonstrate as a musician at that level. And you can look at the different awarding bodies and decide what is best for your students. We like to think that RSL is going to generally be the best for your students, but obviously we would say that. But the difference, I think, is this whole thing about the free choice pieces. You are not limited to picking pieces from particular lists, or pieces from a very, very set list of things. You can pick pieces from all over the place, and as we talked about, you can pick and incorporate kind of pop and jazz pieces as well as classical pieces to put together this exam, which is representative of the student. So we're not saying, here's a student, you must play these pieces in order to pass an exam. We're saying, here's a student who's a musician, and here are the pieces of music that they can present to us, so we can say, yes, you are a musician at grade 5 or grade 6. So it's a slightly different approach, and I think it's much more flexible and much more open, and allows the student to demonstrate their own musical voice in a way that possibly isn't available in other awarding bodies. Is improvisation assessed for RSL Classical Piano Exam? Which grade onwards? Improvisation is an option for the unseen tests all the way through from debut to grade 8. You can just go down the sight reading side of things, or you can go for the improvisation side of things. It's your choice, or the candidate's choice. And indeed, if you do sight reading at grade 1, you can do improvisation at grade 2. You don't pick your pathway and go through it all the way through. You can basically decide which way you want to go. Personally, I think the improvisation side of things is great because it's a great route into composition, and it kind of opens up and frees up a lot of musical expression, and it's a fantastic skill. And I think I found that as a classically trained pianist at about the age of 13, I sort of went, hold on a minute, I can do all my pieces and I can sit and I can play, on my piano by myself. But when I wanted to play with a group of people the way I could with the trumpet, what I realized was being able to look at a chord chart and just be able to make up tunes and make up the melody, or play as part of a band and listen and respond to what they were doing and respond accordingly, kind of opened up a whole other musical world, which possibly would have been closed off to me otherwise had I not engaged with the kind of the improvisation side of things. But it's always a choice from debut to grade 8 for all candidates. And will the SEA selection be in hard copy or exclusively digital? I've got to be completely honest with you. I don't know the answer to that question, and I will need to find out. I suspect it will be available in both, but you will very quickly find out as soon as it becomes available.
Just to add to that. Sorry, Dan. Yeah, I can confirm. Dan's been a bit naughty about the Southeast Asian book because we weren't supposed to talk about it because it's brand new. So you are the first people to hear about this. And so it's a special surprise, I guess, for this special session. But yes, it will be available both digitally and as a hard copy.
Brilliant. I'm not sure. And on that note, I'm not sure we've got any other questions. So if anybody wants to raise their hand or call out questions now, but otherwise I'm going to hand over to our reps and just say from our end, thank you very, very much indeed for putting this webinar together. It's been brilliant to meet you all. It's fantastic to see you all here on this webinar as well. Fantastic questions, and please do email us using the contact details on this presentation, and we'll be able to deal with any other questions that come through. Thanks very much.
I believe we have one last question that's managed to squeeze through. Besides the repertoire range, what is the single most attractive benefit of learning RSL Classical?
Okay, let me have a go at answering this because Dan just gave a very good summary of why he thought that RSL was the choice for you, and I'll do my best as well. I mean, I've worked in my career for 3 different examination boards in both music and dance, and I've been at RSL now for just over a year, and I'm not being paid to say that I really enjoy working for this organization. It's a small, friendly organization. It is energetic, it's modern, it has really good ideas, it's very efficient, we have very good customer service, we get things done quickly and well, we have very good IT and you know, our website and systems work very well, and we have very rigorous academic standards, and we apply those seriously. So I'm very happy to advocate for the organization I work for, and I'm not just saying that to you know, because I'm paid to say it. I really do feel that way, but I also think that this syllabus, this classical piano syllabus, there is nothing like it on the market. I mean, the range of pieces, the repertoire in the books is really unusual and really different. You know, we've found a lot of very unusual composers from a very wide range of cultural backgrounds, different countries around the world, a lot of female composers, a lot of composers from different ethnicities, and it really kind of reimagines classical music in a modern way for the 21st century. Yes, of course, Bach and Haydn and Mozart, they're all there, but so are Samuel Coleridge Taylor and some of the other composers, Oscar Peterson and some of the other composers that Dan has talked about. It's a very interesting and different approach to playing classical music on the piano. And I guess the final thing I'd also mention again, which I talked about before, is our approach to assessment with our examiners. It is different. You know, we have this breakdown of the assessment criteria, which is really clear. Every student gets to find out exactly how well they performed in every aspect of those criteria in each piece, and they get that personalized feedback from the examiner as well. So I think that we have a lot of distinctive qualities, and we're very friendly, and anyone who wants to email me directly and ask me questions, or Dan or Connor or anyone else about how we work or about the exams or the assessment, we're very happy to talk to you and correspond with you. So that would be my my pitch for RSL.
And there's actually, there's been a flurry of final questions as well, which I think we've probably got about 30 seconds to answer. So I will go in reverse order. A couple of questions about whether backing tracks are required during the exam. For the RSL Classical, there are no backing tracks. That's just for the contemporary piano syllabus. If for the free choice pieces, your piece of music comes with a backing track, then you'll need to play it for the backing track for that. For the own choice pieces, is there minimum duration of the piece? No, there isn't, but you just need to be able to demonstrate the right technical skills. So I would use the benchmarking criteria and the durations that are published in there as your guides. Does Rock School certificate carry the same weightage as ABRSM? Absolutely, it does. it has to. It's designed in that way. For diploma, would graded or performance be recommended? It doesn't matter. The professional diploma is a different qualification with different assessment criteria. So you can actually come in and do the diploma without having done any of the previous exams before. So whether you go for graded or performance, it doesn't matter. And our RSL Awards examiners trained to examine classical exams. Andrew mentioned before, we've got a panel of specially trained classical examiners who've got fantastic range of qualifications. And there's actually on our website, on our news page, you can search and you can read up about a number of those, because we've done sort of interviews and summaries of these examiners. And actually there's one on Dr. Andrew McBurney. You should have a good read of that one. It's particularly fine, that one, actually. So I'll have a look at that one. And then finally, besides the repertoire range, what is the single most attractive benefit of learning RSL Classical? And I think I'm going to end with this particular bit, because one of the things that has happened over the last 12 months is that RSL Awards has put itself front and center in terms of being very, very responsive to everything. And that is including our customer service and the availability of people to talk to about the exams process, not only at head office, Andrew and Connor particularly, but also the fantastic reps and the guys that have put this webinar together are here. They're dedicated to talk to you about what you need for your exams. And the same at the moment can't be said for some of the other awarding bodies. So I would say that is a significant attraction, because if you want to do an exam within the next 3 months, you need to be able to talk to somebody quite quickly. And we have that facility available for you. So please do use the contact details. Please do get in contact with us, because we will respond very, very quickly, both to your immediate requests, but also any feedback you give us on the syllabuses, both positive and negative, because we take all of those and we share it, and it helps to inform the direction of travel, because we're not just making this up. We're responding to what you guys, who are the teachers, who are the most important piece of the jigsaw, what you're doing and what you're telling us is really, really important to us. Thanks very much.
All right, and I believe that is all we have time for today. Before we go, can we request everyone to please switch on your cameras? We'll have just a really quick group photo shoot. Okay, we'll do 3 rounds. We'll do a formal shot and 2 fun shots. Does that sound good? All right, so if everybody is ready, may I know who's in charge of the photos today? Okay, we've got Mickey on the camera right now. Oh, all right, so let's do okay, let's start with the formal shot. Everyone in 3, 2, 1. All right, let's move on to something a little bit more candid. Let's do fun shot number 1, shall we? All right, so get out your peace signs, your rock signs, your Korean hearts. All right, your heart signs, whatever it is. And 3, 2, 1. All right, last one, freestyle. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Okay, have we got the shot? All right, thank you so much. Once again, thank you everyone for coming and joining us for this session. The RSL Classical Piano exam books will be available in hard copy at RS Event Center. If you'd like to make a reservation or place an order, you can call us at 6348-6100 or WhatsApp us at 8766-0639 or drop us an email at exam@rs-event.sg for any exam and book related matters. Once again, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. And on behalf of the RSL head office team and the RS Event Center team, we'd like to wish you all a good day. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.